Item number 1, Sri Arun Jaitley ji to present.
Madam Speaker, I rise to present the budget of the Union for the year 2015-16. I present this budget in an economic environment which is far more positive than in the recent past. When other countries are facing serious challenges, India is about to take off on a faster growth trajectory once again. The International Monetary Fund has downgraded its earlier forecast of the global economic growth by 0.3%, and the World Trade Organization has revised its forecast of the world trade growth from 5.3 to 4%. Forecasts for India, however, have either been upgraded or remained the same without downgrades. Madam Speaker, we have also embraced the states as equal partners in the process of economic growth. States have been economically empowered more than ever before. It is my belief that every rupee of public expenditure, whether undertaken by the centre or the states, will contribute to the betterment of the people's life through job creation, poverty elimination and economic growth. In the last 9 months, the NDA government headed by Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi has undertaken several significant steps to energize the economy. The credibility of the Indian economy has been re-established. The world is predicting that it is India's chance to fly. कुछ तो फूल खिलाए हमने और कुछ फूल खिलाने हैं. मुश्किल ये है बाग में अब तक कांटे कहीं पुराने हैं. Though the union budget is essentially a statement of account of public finances, it has historically become a significant opportunity to indicate the direction and pace of India's economic policy. My proposals, therefore, lay down the roadmap for accelerating growth, enhancing investment, and passing on the benefit of growth process to the common man, woman, youth, and child, those whose quality of life needs to be improved. This is the path we will doggedly and relentlessly pursue. As the Prime Minister has often said, we are a round-the-clock, round-the-year government. Madam, allow me to describe the changes of the Indian economy since we first took office. In November 2012, CPI inflation stood at 11.2%. The current account deficit by the first quarter of 2013-14 had reached 4.6% of GDP, and the normal foreign exchange flows until March 2014 were 15 billion US. We inherited a sentiment of, if I may say so, doom and gloom, and the investor community had almost written us off. We have come a long way since then. The latest CPI inflation is 5.1%, and the wholesale price inflation is negative. The current account deficit for the year is expected to be below 1.3% of GDP based on the new series. The real GDP growth is expected to accelerate to 7.4%, making India the fastest growing large economy in the world. Foreign inflows since April 2014 have been about 55 billion US, so that our foreign exchange reserves have increased to a record of 340 billion. The rupee has become stronger by 6.4% against a broad basket of currencies, and ours is the second best performing stock market amongst the major economies. In short, Madam Speaker, we have turned around the economy, dramatically restoring macroeconomic stability and creating conditions for sustainable poverty elimination, job creation, durable double-digit economic growth. Domestic and international investors are seeing us with renewed interest and hope. While being mindful of the challenges, Madam Speaker, this gives us reason to feel optimistic. With all humility at my command, I submit that this opportunity has arisen because we have created it. The people of India have voted resoundingly for quick change, faster growth, highest levels of transparency. They wanted the scam, scandal, corruption Raj to end. They wanted a government in which they can trust. We have lived up to that trust. Our actions have not only been confined to the core or the macroeconomic areas alone. Illustratively, action has been taken with regard to allocation of natural resources, financial inclusion, health and hygiene of the common man, girls and their education, employment for the youth, improved and non-adversarial tax administration, effective delivery of benefits, investment and job creation, welfare of labor, agricultural productivity and increasing farm incomes, power digital connectivity, skilling our youth, efficient and better work culture in our government, ease of doing business, mainstreaming northeastern states, and reviving our pride in the nation and culture. I am giving the details in an annexure to this speech. Madam Speaker, of the work that we have done, I would like to talk of 3 achievements as they demonstrate the quality and conviction of our government. One is the success of the Jan Dhan Yojana. Financial inclusion has been talked about for decades now. Who would have thought that in a short span of 100 days, over 12.5 crore families could have been brought into the financial mainstream? The other is coal auctions. Earlier, the states only got benefit of royalty. Now, by transparent auction process that we are carrying out, the coal-bearing states will be getting several lakhs of crores of rupees, which they can use for the creation of long-awaited community assets and the welfare of their people. The third is Swachh Bharat, which we have been able to transform into a movement to regenerate India. I can speak of, for example, the 50 lakh toilets already constructed in 14-15, and I can assure the members of this august House that we will indeed attain the target of building 6 crore toilets. But, Madam, Swachh Bharat is not a program of hygiene and cleanliness, but at a deeper level, a program of preventive health care and building awareness. We have now embarked on 2 more game-changing reforms: GST and what the Economic Survey has called the JMAM Trinity, Jan Dhan, Aadhaar, Mobile, to implement the direct transfer of benefits. GST will put in place a state-of-art indirect tax system by 1st April 2016. The JAM Trinity will allow us to transfer benefits in a leakage-proof, well-targeted, cashless manner. Madam Speaker, one of the achievements of my government has been to conquer inflation. This decline, in my view, represents a structural shift. Going forward, we expect the CPI inflation to remain close to 5% by the end of the year. This will allow further easing of monetary policy. To ensure that our victory over inflation is institutionalized and hence continues, we have concluded a monetary policy framework agreement with the Reserve Bank of India, and as I had promised in my budget speech 14-15. This framework clearly states objective of keeping inflation below 6%. We will move to amend the RBI Act this year and provide for a monetary policy committee. The Central Statistics Office has recently released a new series of GDP which involves a number of changes relative to the old series. Based on the new series, estimated GDP for 14-15 is 7.4%. Growth in 2015-16 is expected to be between 8 and 8.5%. Aiming for a double-digit rate seems feasible very soon. I will now come to the task ahead of us. In respect of social and economic indicators for decades, now we have worked in terms of percentages and numbers of beneficiaries covered. It is quite obvious that incremental change is not going to take us anywhere. We have to think in terms of a quantum jump. The year 2022 will be the Amrit Mahotsav, the 75th year of India's independence. The vision of what the Prime Minister has called Team India, led by the states and guided by the central government, should include a roof for each family in India. The call given for housing for all by 2022 would require Team India to complete 2 crore houses in urban areas and 4 crore houses in rural India. Each house in the country should have basic facilities of a 24-hour power supply, clean drinking water, a toilet, and be connected to a road. At least one member of each family should have access to means of livelihood and employment or economic opportunity to improve his or her lot. Substantial reduction of poverty. All our schemes should focus on and center around the poor. Each of us has to commit ourselves to this task of eliminating absolute poverty. Electrification by 2020 of the remaining 20,000 villages in the country, including the off-grid solar power generation. Connecting each of the 178,000 unconnected habitations by all-weather roads. This will require completing 1 lakh kilometers of roads currently under construction, plus sanctioning and building another 1 lakh kilometers of road. Good health is a necessity for both quality of life and a person's productivity and ability to support his or her family. Providing medical facilities in each village and city is absolutely essential. Educating and skilling our youth to enable them to get employment is the altar before which we must bow. To ensure that there is a senior secondary school within 5-kilometer reach of each child, we need to upgrade 80,000 secondary schools and add or upgrade 75,000 junior middle to the senior secondary level. We have also to ensure that education improves in terms of quality and learning outcomes. Increase in agricultural productivity and realization of reasonable prices of agricultural production is essential for the welfare of rural people. We should commit to increasing the irrigated area, improving efficiency of existing irrigation schemes, promoting agro-based industries and value addition, and increasing farm incomes and reasonable prices for farm produce. In terms of communication, the rural-urban divide should no longer be acceptable to us. We have to ensure connectivity to all villages without it. 2/3 of our population is below 35. To ensure that our young get proper jobs, we have to aim to make India the manufacturing hub of the world. The Skill India and the Make in India programs are aimed at doing this. We have also to encourage the growth and grow the spirit of entrepreneurship in India and support the new startups. Thus can our youth turn into being from job seekers to job creators. The eastern and northeastern regions of our country are lagging behind in development on many fronts. We need to ensure that they are at par with the rest of the economy. By the time the 75th year of India's independence, Amrit Mahotsav of our independence is reached, we have to achieve all the above so that India can become a prosperous country and a responsible global power. This will be our true and meaningful tribute to our freedom fighters. As I have said earlier, Madam Speaker, I am also mindful of the 5 challenges I have to reckon with. Firstly, agricultural incomes are under stress. Our second challenge is increasing investment in infrastructure. With private investment in infrastructure via public-private partnership model still weak, public investment needs to step in to catalyze investment. Our third challenge is that manufacturing has declined from 18% to 17% of GDP, and as per the new GDP data, the manufacturing exports have remained stagnant at about 10% of the GDP. The Make in India program is aimed at making this challenge, thus of creating jobs. Fourth, we have to be mindful of the need for fiscal discipline in spite of rising demands of public investment. In keeping with the true spirit of cooperative federalism, we have devolved a 42% share of the divisible pool of taxes to the states. As members of this august House are aware, this is an unprecedented increase which would empower the states with more resources. The devolution of the states would be to the order of 5.24 lakh crores in 15-16 as against a devolution of 3.38 lakh crores as per the revised estimates of 14-15. Another 3.04 lakh crores would be transferred by way of grants, plans and transfers. Thus, the total transfer to the states will be about 62% of the total receipts of the country. अगर केंद्र और राज्यों का टैक्स रेवेन्यू जोड़ लिया जाए तो अब 62% राज्यों के पास होगा, 38% केंद्र के पास होगा. In spite of the consequential reduced fiscal space for the centre, the government has decided to continue to supporting important national priorities such as agriculture, education, health, Manrega, rural infrastructure, including roads program targeted for the poor and underprivileged, which will be all continued by us. With the fiscal space not just reduced but squeezed, I have to meet the fifth challenge of maintaining the fiscal discipline. Economic growth this year at 11.5% is lower in nominal terms by about 2% due to lower inflation. Consequently, tax buoyancy was also significantly lower. Despite this, Madam, I have kept my word and will meet the challenging fiscal target of 4.1% of the GDP, which we had inherited. Madam Speaker, I need to overcome these challenges to reduce and eliminate poverty. I want to underscore that my government still remains firm on achieving the medium-term target of 3% of the GDP. This is the fiscal target. But the journey has to take into account the need for increasing public investment. The total additional public investment over and above the RE is planned at rupees 1.25 lakh crores, of which rupees 70,000 crore would be the capital expenditure from the budgetary outlays. We have to take into account the drastically reduced fiscal space, uncertainties in the implementation of the GST will create, and the likely burden of the report of the 7th Pay Commission. Rushing into or insisting on a preset timetable for fiscal consolidation pro-cyclically would, in my opinion, not be pro-growth. With economy improving, the pressure for accelerated fiscal consolidation too has decreased. In these circumstances, I will complete the journey to a fiscal deficit of 3% in 3 years rather than 2 years as envisaged previously. Thus, the next 3 years, my targets are 3.9% for 15-16, 3.5% for 16-17, and 3% for 17-18. The additional fiscal space will go towards funding infrastructure investment. I will be moving amendments accordingly in the Finance Bill to the FRBM Act. Madam Speaker, I want to round up the discussion on fiscal roadmap in an optimistic tone. While there is a compositional shift, the aggregate envelope for job creation, poverty elimination, and building infrastructure is not disturbed. In fact, it goes up this year and every subsequent year in the same proportion as tax revenues of the Union and the state governments increase. From this national perspective of public finances, not only is the path of fiscal consolidation on track, aggregate annual capital expenditure of the government as a whole can be expected to rise significantly by more than 0.5% of the GDP.
Yes, अब आप अगर बैठ के भी ये करना चाहे तो you can.
Thank you, Madam.
Yeah.
As I need it, I'll certainly request you, Madam.
Okay.
Thank you. Aapka dhanyavad. Madam Speaker, it may be noted that the budget reflects considerable scaling up of the disinvestment figures. This will include both disinvestment in loss-making units and some strategic disinvestments. Madam Speaker, this government is committed in its resolve as Indians to regain our preeminence as just and compassionate society. Well-intentioned schemes introduced in the past have often been ill-targeted, riddled with leakages, and delivered with inefficiency. The same is true of subsidies. Subsidies are needed for the poor and those less well-off. What we need is a well-targeted system of subsidy delivery. We need to cut subsidy leakage, not subsidies themselves. We are committed to the process of rationalizing subsidies based on this approach. We have embarked on that path. The direct transfer of benefits, started mostly in scholarship schemes, will be further expanded with a view to increasing the number of beneficiaries from the present 1 crore to 10.3 crores. Similarly, rupees 6,335 crore has so far been transferred directly as LPG subsidy to 11.5 crore LPG customers. I am sure these persons who are better off, such as the top tax bracket, and those who are generally concerned with the poor and the welfare of the poor, such as members of this House, will give up their LPG subsidy voluntarily. I'll continue.
Yes, you can.
Our commitment to farmers runs deep. We have already taken major steps to address two major factors critical to the agricultural production: soil and water. An ambitious soil health card has been launched to improve the soil fertility on a sustainable basis. In order to improve soil health, I propose to support Agricultural Ministry's organic farm scheme, Paramparagagat Krishi Vikas Yojana. The Pradhan Mantri Gram Sinchai Yojana is aimed at irrigating the field of every farmer and improving the water usage efficiency to provide per drop more crop. I am allocating rupees 5,300 crores to support micro-irrigation watershed programs and Pradhan Mantri Krishi Sinchai Yojana. I urge the states to chip in substantially in this vital sector. To support agriculture sector with the help of effective and hassle-free agricultural credit with special focus on small and marginal farmers, I propose to allocate rupees 25,000 crores in 15-16 to the corpus of Rural Infrastructure Development Fund set up by NABARD, 15,000 crores for Long-Term Rural Credit Fund, 45,000 crore for Short-Term Cooperative Rural Credit Refinance Fund, and 15,000 crores for Short-Term RRB Refinance Fund. Farm credit underpins the efforts of our hard-working farmers. I have therefore set up an ambitious target of rupees 8.5 lakh crores of credit during the year 15-16, which I am sure the banks will surpass. Our government is committed to supporting employment through Manrega. We will ensure that no one who is poor is left without employment. We will focus on improving the quality and effectiveness of activities under Manrega. I have made an initial allocation of rupees 34,699 crores for this program. While the farmer is no longer in the clutches of the local trader, his produce still does not command the best notional price. To increase incomes of farmers, it is felt that we create a national agricultural market which will have incidental benefit of moderating prices. I intend this year to work in the states in NITI for the creation of a unified national agricultural market. Madam Speaker, our government firmly believes that development has to generate inclusive growth. While large corporate and business entities have a role to play, this has to be complemented by informal sectors, enterprises which generate maximum employment. There are 5 crore 77 lakh small business units, mostly individual proprietorships, which run small manufacturing, trading and business service businesses. 62% of these are owned by SC, STs and OBCs. These bottom of the pyramid hard-working entrepreneurs find it difficult, if not impossible, to access formal systems of credit. I therefore propose to create a micro units development refinance agency, Mudra Bank, with a corpus of 20,000 crores and credit guarantee corpus of 3,000 crores. The Mudra Bank will refinance microfinance institutions through a Pradhan Mantri Mudra Yojana. In lending, priority will be given to SC, ST enterprises. These measures will will greatly increase the confidence of our young, educated or skilled workers who would now be able to become the first generation entrepreneurs. Existing small businesses too will be able to expand their activities. Just as we are banking the unbanked, we are also funding the unfunded. A significant part of the working capital requirement of the MSME arises due to long receivables in the realization cycle. We are in the process of establishing an electronic trade receivable discounting system, financing of trade receivables of MSMEs from corporates to other buyers through multiple financiers. This should improve the liquidity in the MSME sector significantly. Bankruptcy law reform that bring about a legal certainty and speed has been identified as a key priority for improving the ease of doing business. SICA and BIFR have failed to achieve these objectives. We will bring a comprehensive bankruptcy code in the year 2015-16 that will meet global standards and provide for judicial capacity. The government is committed to increase access of the people to formal financial system. In this context, the government proposes to utilize the vast postal network with nearly 1,54,000 points of presence spread across villages of the country. I hope the Postal Department will make its proposed payments bank venture successful so that it contributes to the Pradhan Mantri Jan Dhan Yojana. सारे पोस्ट ऑफिसेज इससे बैंकिंग काम के अंदर इन्वॉल्व कर लिए जाएंगे. To bring about parity in regulation of non-banking financial companies with other financial institutions in matters relating to recovery, it is proposed that NBFCs registered with RBI having a size of rupees 500 crores and above will be considered as financial institution in terms of the Sarfasi Act. A large portion of India's population is without insurance of any kind, health, accident or life. Worryingly, our young population ages, it also is going to be pensionless. Encouraged by the success of the Pradhan Mantri Jan Dhan Yojana, I propose to work towards creating a universal social security system for all Indians, especially the poor and unprivileged. The soon to be launched Pradhan Mantri Suraksha Bima Yojana will cover accident death risk of rupees 2 lakhs for a premium of just rupees 12 per year. मैडम, 1 रुपया महीना जो जनधन खाते से ट्रांसफर होगा उससे 2 लाख की एक्सीडेंट इंश्योरेंस हर गरीब आदमी को मिलेगी. Similarly, we will also launch the Atal Pension Yojana, which will provide a defined pension depending on the contribution and its period. To encourage people to join this scheme, government will contribute 50% of the beneficiaries' premium, limited to rupees 1,000 each year for the 5 years in its new accounts opened before 31st December 2015. इसकी डिटेल्स आज सार्वजनिक की जाएंगी. हर महीने कोई गरीब आदमी कंट्रीब्यूट करे, उसमें से आधा सरकार देगी और 60 साल की उम्र से उसको पेंशन मिलनी आरंभ होगी. The third social security scheme I wish to announce is the Pradhan Mantri Jeevan Jyoti Bima Yojana, which will cover the natural and accidental death risk of rupees 2 lakhs. The premium will be rupees 330 per year or less than rupee 1 per day for the age group 18 to 50. Madam, there are unclaimed deposits of 3,000 crores in PPF and approximately 6,000 crores in EPF corpus. I have proposed to create a senior citizens welfare fund in the finance bill for appropriation of these amounts to a corpus which will subsidize the premiums of the vulnerable groups such as old age pensioners, BPL cardholders, small and marginal farmers and others. A detailed scheme would be issued in March this year. Madam Speaker, with regard to the needs and the population of senior citizens in the country, which is now approximately 10.5 crores, out of which over 1 crore are above the age of 80, 70% live in rural areas and a large number are in the BPL category. A sizable percentage of them suffer from age-related disabilities. Ours is a society that venerates its elders. I therefore propose a new scheme for providing physical aids and assisted living devices for senior citizens living below the poverty line. In sum, these social security schemes reflect our commitment to utilize the Jan Dhan platform to ensure that no Indian citizen will have to worry about illness, accidents or penury in old age. Being sensitive to the needs of the poor and underprivileged and the disadvantaged, the government also remains committed to the ongoing welfare schemes of the SCs, STs and women. Despite serious constraints on union finances, allocations this year have been made as follows. SCs 30,851 crores, STs 19,980 crores, women 79,258 crores. An integrated education and livelihood scheme called Nai Manzil will be launched this year to enable minority youth who do not have formal school leaving certificate to obtain one and find a better employment. Further, to show cause civilizational and culture of the Parsis, the Government of India will support in 2015-16 an exhibition, The Everlasting Flame. The allocation of the Ministry of Minority Affairs is being protected. The BE for the year 2015-16 is 3738 crores. Infrastructure. Madam, this is no secret that the major slippage in the last decade has been on the infrastructure front. Our infrastructure does not match our growth ambitions. There is a pressing need to increase public investment. I have therefore increased outlays on both roads and gross budgetary support to the railways by 14,031 and rupees 10,050 crores respectively. The capex of public sector units is expected to be 3,17,889 crores, an increase of approximately 80,844 crores over last year. In fact, all told, investment in infrastructure will go up by 70,000 crores in the year 15-16 over 14-15 from the Centre's fund and resources of the CPSEs. But madam, we need much more investment than adding 70,000 crores more. Secondly, I intend to establish a national investment and infrastructure fund, which finds monies to ensure an annual flow of 20,000 crores to it. 20,000 is what the government will be giving. This will enable the trust to raise debt in terms, invest as equity in infrastructure finance companies like the IRFC and the NHB. The infrastructure finance companies can then leverage this extra equity many folds. Thirdly, I also intend to permit tax-free infrastructure bonds for projects in rail, road and irrigation. Fourthly, PPP model of infrastructure development has to be revisited and revitalized. The major issue involved in rebalancing of risk in infrastructure projects, the sovereign will have to bear a major part of the risk without, of course, absorbing it entirely. Fifth, I intend to establish in NITI an Atal Innovation Mission. AIM will be an innovation promotion platform involving academics, entrepreneurs, researchers, and draw upon national and international experiences to foster a culture of innovation, R&D and scientific research. The platform will also provide a network of world-class hubs and grand challenges for India. The initial sum of rupees 150 crore will be earmarked for this purpose. India has a well-regarded world-class IT industry with revenues of US 150 billion, over 100 billion exports, employing nearly 40 lakh people directly. We are now seeing a growing interest in startups, experimenting in cutting-edge technologies, creating value out of ideas, initiatives, and converting them into scalable enterprises and businesses is at the core of our strategy for engaging our youth for inclusive and sustainable growth of the country. Concerns such as more liberal system of raising global capital, incubation facilities in our centers of excellence, funding for seed capital, and growth of the ease of doing business need to be addressed to create 1 lakh jobs and hundreds of billions of dollars in value. With this objective, the government is establishing a mechanism known as Self-Employment and Talent Utilization, SETU, to be techno-financial incubation and facilitation program to support all aspects of startup businesses and other self-employment activities, particularly in the technology-driven areas. I am setting aside 1,000 crores initially for this purpose. As the success of the so-called minor ports has shown, that ports can be an attractive investment possibility for private sector. Ports in public sector need to both attract such investment as well as leverage the huge land resource lying unused with them. To enable us to do so, ports in public sector will be encouraged to corporatize and become companies under the Companies Act. Madam Speaker, investors spend a large amount of time and resources in getting multiple permissions required. We aim towards ease of doing business. I have myself launched an e-biz portal which integrates 14 regulatory permissions at one source. Good states are embracing and joining this platform. However, if we really want to create jobs, we have to make India an investment destination which permits the start of business in accordance with publicly stated guidelines and criteria. आज permissions में ही सालों साल लग जाते हैं, project शुरू नहीं होते. I intend to appoint an expert committee for the purpose to examine the possibility and prepare a draft legislation where the need for multiple prior permissions can be replaced with a pre-existing regulatory mechanism. आपका regulatory mechanisms में guidelines होंगी, उसके मुताबिक काम शुरू कीजिए, prior permissions का ये substitute होगा. The government also proposes to set up 5 ultra mega power projects, each of 4,000 megawatts, and plug and play mode. All clearances and linkages will be in place before the project is awarded by a transparent auction system. This should unlock investment to the extent of rupees 1 lakh crore. The government would also consider similar plug-and-play projects in other infrastructure projects such as roads, ports, rails, airports, etc. I am happy to announce that the second unit of the Kodanakulam nuclear power station will be commissioned in the year 1516. Madam Speaker, I hope to garner some additional resources during the year for tax buoyancy. If I am successful, then over and above what I have provided in the budget allocation, I will enhance the allocation to Manrega by 5,000 crores. Madam Saab, Khadke Saab बहुत प्रसन्न होंगे. This will make
Please, please, please.
I am responding. Why you are so much worried?
Madam, this will have two features. This will make this year's allocation the highest ever in Manrega, सबसे अधिक होगी, और उसके साथ साथ जो रूरल वेजेस कम हो रही हैं उसको बढ़ाने में भी ये लाभ देगी. I will further be allocating to the Integrated Child Development Scheme another 1,500 crores, to Integrated Child Protection Scheme another 500 crores, and to the Pradhan Mantri Krishi Sinchai Yojana another 3,000 crores, and an initial inflow of rupees 5,000 crores into the National Infrastructure Investment Fund, which I have just announced. Financial markets. One vital factor in promoting investment in India, including the infrastructure sector, is deepening of the Indian bond markets, which will have to bring at the same level as our world-class equity market. I intend to begin this process this year by setting up a public debt management agency which will bring both India's external borrowings and domestic debt under one roof. I also propose to merge the Forward Markets Commission with SEBI to strengthen the regulation of the commodity forward market and reduce wild speculation. Enabling legislation amending Government Securities Act and the RBI Act is proposed in the Finance Bill. Capital accounts controls is a policy rather than a regulatory matter. I propose to amend through the Finance Bill Section 6 of FEMA to clearly provide that control of capital flows as equity will be exercised by the government. A properly functioning capital market also requires proper consumer protection. I therefore propose to create a task force to establish a sector-neutral financial redressal agency that will give grievances against all financial service providers that will address. I am also glad to inform the House that the work assigned to the Task Force on Financial Data Management Center, Financial Sector Appellate Tribunal, the Resolution Corporation, the Public Debt Management Agency are progressing satisfactorily. We have also received a large number of suggestions from the Indian Financial Code, which are currently being reviewed by the Justice Sri Krishna Committee. I hope sooner than later to introduce the Indian Financial Code in Parliament for consideration. Madam Speaker, this is just the beginning. I have a vision of putting in place a direct tax regime which is internationally competitive on rates, is without exemptions, incentivizes savings, and does not realize tax from intermediaries. Such a direct regime would be matched by a modernized indirect tax regime we are putting in place by way of GST and will bring both greater transparency and greater investment. Madam Speaker, with regard to the dormant Employees Provident Fund accounts and the claim ratios of the ESI is too well known to be repeated here. It has been remarked that both EPF and ESI have hostages rather than clients. Further, the low-paid worker suffers deductions greater than better-paid workers in percentage terms. With respect to Employees Provident Fund, the employee needs to be provided with two options. Firstly, the employee may opt for EPF or for the new pension scheme. Secondly, for employees below a certain threshold of income, contributions to EPF should be optional without affecting or reducing the employer's contribution. With respect to ESI, the employee should have the option of choosing either ESI or health insurance product recognized by the IDRA. We intend to bring amending legislation in this regard after stakeholder consultation. Madam, India is the largest consumer of gold in the world. It imports as much as 800 to 1,000 tons of gold each year. Those stocks of gold are estimated to be over 20,000 tons. Mostly this gold is neither traded nor monetized. I propose the following. 1. Introduce a gold monetization scheme which will replace both the present gold deposit and gold metal loans. The new scheme will allow depositors of gold to earn interest in their metal account and jewelers to obtain loans in their metal account. Banks and other dealers would also be able to monetize this gold. 2. Develop an alternative financial asset, a sovereign gold bond, as an alternative to purchasing metal gold. The bond will carry a fixed rate of interest and also be redeemable in cash in terms of face value of gold at a time of redemption by the holder of bond. 3. Commence work on developing the Indian gold coin which carries the Ashoka Chakra on its face. Such an Indian gold coin would help to reduce the demand for coins minted outside India and also help to recycle the gold available in the country. On way to curb the flow of black money is to discourage transactions in cash. Now majority of Indians has or can have a RuPay debit card. All Jan Dhan account holders have a RuPay debit card. I therefore announce very soon several measures that will incentivize credit or debit card transactions and disincentivize cash transactions. This will be in the direction of making India a cashless society. Alternative investment funds have been notified by SEBI. Such alternative investment funds provide another vehicle for facilitating domestic investments. Keeping in view the need to increase investment from all sources, I propose to allow foreign investment in alternative investment funds. To simplify further the procedures of Indian companies to attract foreign investment, I propose to do away with the distinction between different types of foreign investments, especially between foreign portfolio investment and foreign direct investment, and replace them with composite caps. The sectors which are already on a 100% automatic route would not be affected. The Act East policy of the Government of India endeavors to cultivate extensive economic and strategic relations in Southeast Asia. In order to catalyze investment from private sector in this region, a project development company will, through separate special purpose vehicles, will set up manufacturing hubs in CMLV countries, namely Cambodia, Myanmar, Laos and Vietnam. My government is committed to the safety and security of women. In order to support the programs of women security, advocacy and awareness, I have decided to provide another 1,000 crores to the Nirbhaya Fund. While India has 25 World Cultural Heritage Sites, their facilities are still deficient and require restoration, including landscape restoration, signage, interpretation, centers, parking, access for differently abled visitors. Amenities including securities, toilets, illumination, plans for benefiting communities and around them. I propose this year, and I hope this practice continues for next year's onwards also, to start working on these lines and develop with central support the following heritage sites. 1. The churches and convents of Old Goa. 2. Hampi in Karnataka. Elephanta Caves in Mumbai. Kumbhalgarh and other city forests of Rajasthan. Rani Ka Vav in Patan in Gujarat. Leh Palace, Ladakh in Jammu and Kashmir. The Varanasi Temple Town, the Jallianwala Bagh at Amritsar, and the Qutub Shahi Tombs at Hyderabad, Telangana. Wait. After the success
Yes.
After the success of the visas on arrival, issued to travelers of 43 countries. 43 countries. Madam, last year we had announced visas on arrival in 43 countries. The tourism in this country has increased. I propose to increase the countries covered under this scheme to 150 in different stages. Madam, as environment degradation hurts the poor more than others, we are committed to making our development process as green as possible. Our de facto carbon tax on most petroleum products compares favorably with international norms. With regard to coal, there is a need to balance between taxing pollution and the price of power. However, beginning this year, I intend to start on that journey too. My government is launching a scheme for faster adoption and manufacturing electric vehicles. I am proposing an initial outlay of 75 crores in this scheme for 15-16. The Ministry of New Renewable Energy has revised its target of renewable energy to 1,75,000 megawatts in 2022, comprising of 100,000 in solar, 60,000 in wind, 10,000 in biomass and 5,000 of small hydro. Madam Speaker, we are putting the scam, scandal and corruption raj behind us. Malfeasance in public procurement can perhaps be contained by having a procurement law and an institutionalized structure consistent with the UNCITRAL model law. I believe Parliament now needs to take a view on the need to have a procurement law, and if so, in what shape it should take. On the other hand, disputes arising out of public contracts take a long time to resolve and the process is very costly. इसकी वजह से projects अटके रहते हैं. My government proposes to introduce a public contracts resolution of disputes bill to streamline the institutional arrangement of such disputes, institutional arrangement for resolution of such disputes. There is also a need, I feel, to tackle the lack of common approach and philosophy in regulatory arrangements prevailing even within the different sectors of infrastructure. Our government therefore proposes to introduce a regulatory reform law and will bring about a cogency of approach across various sectors of infrastructure. India is one of the youngest nations of the world with more than 54% of the total population below 25 years of age. Our young people have to be both educated and employable for the jobs of the 21st century. The Prime Minister has explained on how Skill India needs to be closely coordinated with Make in India. Yet today, less than 5% of our potential workforce gets formal skill training to be employable and stay employable. We will soon be launching a national skills mission through Skill Development and Entrepreneurship Ministry. The mission will consolidate skill initiatives spread across several ministries and allow us to standardize procedures and outcomes of our 31 sectors skill councils. With rural population still forming close to 70% of India's population, enhancing employability of rural youth is the key or to unlocking India's demographic dividend. With this in mind, we have launched the Deen Dayal Upadhyaya Gramin Kushal Yojana. Rupees 1,500 crores has been set apart for this scheme. Disbursement will be through a digital voucher directly into qualified student bank account. This year, when we will be entering the 100th birth anniversary of Pandit Deen Dayal Upadhyaya, the intention of the government is to celebrate the anniversary of the great nationalist in a befitting manner. A 100th birthday celebration committee will be announced soon and adequate resources provided for the same. With a view to enable all poor and middle class students to pursue higher education in their choice without constraint of funds, I propose to set up a fully IT-based student financial aid authority to administer and monitor scholarship, as also the educational loan scheme through the Pradhan Mantri Vidya Lakshmi Karyakram. We will ensure that no student misses out on higher education for lack of funds. Honorable members will remember that in the budget speech of July, I had indicated my intention to provide one major central institution to each state. मैडम, इसमें कोई रह जाए तो साल के दौरान बजट के बाद भी हम लोग कंसिडर कर लेंगे. In this fiscal year, I propose to set up an All India Institute of Medical Sciences in Jammu and Kashmir, Punjab, Tamil Nadu, Himachal Pradesh and Assam. Keeping in view the need to augment medical services in Bihar, jahan already AIIMS hai, I propose to set up another AIIMS-like institution in that state. I propose to set up an IIT in Karnataka, upgrade the Indian School of Mines Dhanbad to a full IIT. I propose to set up a postgraduate institute of horticulture research in Amritsar. IIMs will be set up in Jammu and Kashmir and Andhra Pradesh. In Kerala, I propose to upgrade the existing National Institute of Speech and Hearing into a University of Disability Studies and Rehabilitation. I am also proposing 3 new national institutions of pharmaceutical education and research in Maharashtra, Rajasthan and Chhattisgarh, and institutions of science and educational research in Nagaland and Odisha. I am also proposing for Northeast to set up a center for film production, animation and gaming in Arunachal Pradesh, and an apprentice training institute for women in Haryana and Uttarakhand. In order to improve the governance of public sector banks, the government intends to announce an autonomous bank board bureau. The bureau will search and select heads of public sector banks and help them in developing differentiated strategies of capital raising plans through innovative financial methods and instruments. This would be an interim step toward establishing a holding and an investment company for banks. Madam, I would like to inform the House that we are making good progress on Digital India. The National Optical Fiber Network of 7.5 lakh kilometers, networking 2.5 lakh villages, is being further speeded up by allowing willing states to undertake its execution on reimbursement of cost as determined by the Department of Telecommunication. Andhra Pradesh is the first state to have opted for this manner of implementation. As members are aware, in making a recommendation, the Finance Commission has not distinguished between special category and other states. Moreover, both Bihar and West Bengal are going to be amongst the biggest beneficiaries of the recommendations of the Finance Commission. Yet, eastern states have to be given an opportunity to grow faster. This is what the Prime Minister reiterated even yesterday, that East needs an extra boost. I therefore propose to give similar special assistance to Bihar and West Bengal as has been provided in the case by the Government of India, as has been provided in the case of Andhra Pradesh. As regards Andhra Pradesh and Telangana, the government is committed to comply with all legal commitments to these states at the time of reorganization. In spite of large devolution of states to the states, which implies reduced fiscal space for the center, in the same proportion, we are committed to the welfare of the poor and neo-middle class. Keeping this in mind, adequate provision is being made for schemes for the poor and disadvantaged. Illustratively, I have allocated 68,968 crores to the educational sector, including midday meals, 33,152 to the health sector, 79,526 crores to the rural development activities, including Manrega, 22,407 for housing and urban development, 10,351 for women and child development, 4,173 for water resources and Nemami Gange. The significant sums will be spent by the states on these programs will ensure that the quantum of leap in expenditure in these areas. I urge the states to utilize their enhanced resources effectively in these areas. Madam Speaker, I am delighted to report a good progress of DMIC corridor on the Ahmedabad-Dhurera investment region in Gujarat and the Sahendra Bidkin Industrial Park near Aurangabad. In Maharashtra, are now in a position to start work on basic infrastructure. In the current year, I have earmarked an initial sum of rupees 1,200 crores. However, the pace of expenditure picks up. I will provide additional funds. Defense of each square inch of our motherland comes before anything else. So far as we have been dependent on imports with attendant unwelcome spin-offs, our government has already permitted FDI in defense so that Indian-controlled entities also become manufacturers of defense equipment, not only for us but for export. We are thus pursuing the Make in India policy to achieve greater self-sufficiency in the area of defense equipment, including aircraft. Members of this august House would have noted that we have been both transparent and quick in making defense equipment related purchase decisions. This year, keeping our defense forces ready for any eventuality. This year, I have provided adequately for the needs of the armed forces. As against the expenditure of the current year at 2,22,370 crores, the budget allocation for 15-16 is 2,46,727 crores. While India produces some of the finest minds, including international finance, they have very few avenues in India to fully exhibit and exploit their strength to the country's advantage. GIFT in Gujarat was envisaged as an international financial center that would actually become as good an international center as Singapore or Dubai, which incidentally are largely manned by Indians. The proposal has languished for years. I am glad to announce that the first phase of GIFT will now become a reality. Appropriate regulations will be issued in the month of March. For the resolution of commercial disputes, the government proposes to set up exclusive commercial divisions in various high courts in India based on the recommendations of the 253rd report of the Law Commission. The government proposes to introduce a bill in Parliament after consulting stakeholders. Madam Speaker, the government will, during the course of this session, also place before the Parliament required bills to convert ordinances issued by the government into acts of Parliament. I will now turn to the budget estimates for the year 15-16. Non-planned expenditure estimates for the year are estimated at 13,12,200 crores. Planned expenditure is estimated at 4,65,277 crore, which will be near to the RE of 2014-15. Total expenditure has been estimated at 17,77,477 crores. The requirements of expenditure on defense, internal security and other necessary expenditures are being provided. Gross tax receipts are estimated at 14,49,490 crores. Devolution to the states is estimated to be at 5,23,958 crores. Share of the central government will be 9,19,842 crores. Non-tax revenues for the next fiscal are estimated to be 2,21,733 crores. With the above, the fiscal deficit will be 3.9% of GDP and revenue deficit will be 2.8% of GDP. Madam Speaker, I now turn to my tax proposals. Taxation is an instrument of social economic engineering. Tax collections help the government to provide education, healthcare, housing and other basic facilities to the people to improve their quality of life and to address the problems of poverty, unemployment and slow development. To achieve these objectives, it is our endeavor in the last 9 months to foster a stable taxation policy, a non-adversarial tax administration. A very important dimension to our tax administration is the fight against the scourge of black money. A number of measures have already been taken in this direction. I propose to do much more. We need to revive growth and investment to ensure that more jobs are created for our youth and benefits of development reach millions of our people. We need to enable tax policy for this. I have already introduced a bill to amend the Constitution of India for goods and services tax in the last session of this August House. GST is expected to play a transformative role in the way of our economy functions. It will add buoyancy to our economy by developing a common Indian market and reducing the cascading effect of the cost of goods and services. We are moving on various fronts to implement GST from next year. We need to match this transformative piece of legislation in indirect taxation and transformative measures in direct taxation. The basic rate of corporate tax in India is 30%. It is higher than the rates prevalent in other major Asian countries, making our domestic industry uncompetitive. Moreover, the effective collection of corporate tax is only 23%. We lose out on both counts. We are considered as having a high corporate tax regime, but we do not get that tax due to excessive exemptions. A regime of exemptions has led to pressure groups, litigations, and loss of revenue. It has also given room for avoidable discretion. I therefore propose to reduce the rate of corporate tax for 30% to 25% over the next 4 years. This will lead to higher level of investment, higher level of growth, and more jobs. This process of reduction has to be necessarily accompanied by rationalization and removal of various kinds of exemptions and incentives for corporate taxpayers, which incidentally account for a large number of tax disputes. I wanted to start the phased reduction of corporate tax and the phased elimination of exemptions right away. But I thought it would be appropriate to give advance notice of these changes, which will start from next financial year onwards. Our stated policy is to avoid surprises and instability in tax policy. Exemption to individual taxpayers will, however, continue since they facilitate savings and get transferred to investment and economic growth. While finalizing my tax proposals, I have adopted certain broad themes, which include measures to curb black money, job creation through revival of growth and investment and promotion of domestic manufacturing and Make in India, minimum government and maximum governance to improve the case of doing business, benefits to middle-class taxpayers, improving the quality of life and robust health through Swachh Bharat initiatives, standalone proposals to maximize benefits to the economy. Madam Speaker, the first and foremost pillar of my tax proposals is to effectively deal with the problem of black money, which eats into the vitals of our economy and society. The problem of poverty and inequity cannot be eliminated unless generation of black money and its concealment is dealt with effectively and forcefully. In the last 9 months, several measures have been initiated in this direction. A major breakthrough was achieved in October 2014 when a delegation of the Revenue Department visited Switzerland and Swiss authorities agreed to provide information in respect of cases independently investigated by Income Tax Department, confirm the genuineness of bank accounts and provide non-banking information, provide such information in a time-bound manner, commence talks with India for automatic exchange of information between the two countries at its earliest. Investigation into cases of undisclosed foreign assets has been accorded the highest priority, resulting in detection of substantial amounts of unreported income. For strengthening collection of information from various sources domestically, a new structure is being put in place which includes electronic filing of statements by reporting entities. This will ensure seamless integration of data and more effective enforcement. Tracking down black money
and bringing wealth back to wealth which legitimately belongs to this country is our abiding commitment. Recognizing the limitations under existing legislation, we have taken a considered decision to enact a comprehensive new law on black money to deal with monies which are stashed abroad. To this intent, I propose to introduce the bill in the current session of Parliament. With your permission, Madam Speaker, I would like to give some highlights and key features of the proposed bill. Concealment of income and asset and evasion of tax in relation to a foreign asset will be prosecutable with punishment of rigorous imprisonment up to 10 years. This offence will be made non-compoundable. The offender will not be permitted to approach the Settlement Commission. Penalty for such concealment of income and assets will be at the rate of 300% of the tax shall be levied. Non-filing of return or filing of return with inadequate disclosures of foreign asset will be liable for prosecution and punishment of rigorous imprisonment up to 7 years. Income in relation to undisclosed foreign asset or undisclosed income from any asset will be taxable at the maximum marginal rate. Exemption or deduction which may otherwise be applicable in such cases shall not be allowed. Beneficial owner or beneficiary of foreign asset will be mandatorily required to file a return even if there is no taxable income. Abettors of such offences, whether individuals, entities, banks or financial institutions, will be liable for prosecution and penalty. Date of opening of foreign account would mandatorily be required to be specified by the assessee in the return of income. The offence of concealment of income, of evasion of tax in relation to foreign asset will be made a predicate offence under the Prevention of Money Laundering Act. This provision would enable enforcement agencies to attach and confiscate unaccounted assets held abroad and launch prosecution against person indulging in laundering of black money. The definition of proceeds of crime under PMLA is being amended to enable attachment and confiscation of equivalent asset in India where the asset located abroad cannot be forfeited. The Foreign Exchange Management Act is being amended to the effect that if any foreign exchange, foreign security or immovable property situated outside India is held in contravention of the provisions of the Act, then action can be taken for seizure and eventual confiscation of assets of equivalent value in India. These contraventions are also being made liable for levy of penalty and prosecution with a punishment of imprisonment up to 5 years. With regard to curbing domestic black money, a new and more comprehensive bill, Benami Transaction Prohibition Bill, will be introduced in the current session of Parliament. The law will enable the confiscation of Benami property and provide for prosecution, thus blocking a major avenue for generation and holding of black money in the form of Benami property, especially in real estate. A few other measures are being proposed in the budget for curbing of black money. The Finance Bill includes a proposal to amend the Income Tax Act to prohibit acceptance of an amount of advance of rupees 20,000 or more in cash for purchase of immovable property. Quoting of the PAN number is being made mandatory for purchase of any sale exceeding a value of rupees 1 lakh. The third parties reporting entities would be required to furnish information about foreign currency sales, cross-border transactions. Provisions are also being made to tackle splitting of reportable transactions. To improve enforcement, CBDT and CBEC will leverage technology and have access to information in each other's database. Madam Speaker, the second pillar of my taxation proposal this year is job creation through revival of growth and investment and promotion of domestic manufacturing and Make in India. I propose to undertake a series of steps in this direction to attract capital both domestic and foreign. Tax pass-through is proposed to be allowed in Category 1 and Category 2. alternative investment funds so that tax can be levied on the investors in these funds and not on the fund per se. This will step up the ability of these funds to mobilize higher resources and make higher investments in small and medium enterprises, infrastructure and social projects, and provide the much required private equity to the new venture of startups. A step was taken in the last budget to encourage the real estate investment trust and the infrastructure investment trust by providing partial pass-through to them. These collective investment vehicles have an important role to revive construction activity. A large quantum of funds are unlocked in various completed projects which need to be released to facilities, new infrastructure projects to take off. I therefore propose to rationalize the capital gains regime for the sponsorers existing at the time of listing of the units of REITs and InvITs subject to the payment of security transaction tax. The rental income from REITs from their own assets will have a pass-through facility. The present taxation structure has an inbuilt incentive for fund managers to operate from offshore locations. To encourage such offshore fund managers to relocate back to India, I propose to modify the permanent establishment norms to the effect that mere presence of a fund manager in India would not constitute a permanent establishment of the offshore fund, resulting in adverse tax consequences. Implementation of general anti-avoidance rule has been a matter of public debate. The investment sentiment in the country has now turned positive, and we need to accelerate this momentum. There are also certain contentious issues relating to GAR which we need to resolve. It has therefore been decided to defer the applicability of GAR by 2 years. Further, it has also been decided when implemented that GAR would apply prospectively to investments made on or after 1/4/2017. Today, I see a lot of young entrepreneurs running businesses, ventures, and wanting to start new ones. They need latest technology. Therefore, to facilitate technology inflow into the businesses at low cost, I propose to reduce the rate of income tax on royalty fees for technical services from 25% to 10%. To generate employment opportunities, it is proposed to extend the benefit of deduction of employment of new regular workmen to all business entities. The eligibility threshold of minimum 100 workmen is being reduced to 50. The role of indirect taxes has also been very important in the context of promotion of domestic manufacturing and Make in India. In indirect taxes, therefore, I propose to reduce the rate of basic custom duty on certain inputs, raw material, intermediates, and components in all 22 items so as to minimize the impact of duty inversion and reduce manufacturing costs in several sectors. Some of these changes will address the problem of CENVET credit accumulation due to the levy of SAD. I propose to fully exempt all goods except populated printed circuit boards for the use in manufacturing of the ITA bound items from SAD and reduce the SAD on imports of certain other inputs of raw materials subject to the actual user condition. These changes are detailed in an annexure to my budget speech. My next proposal is regarding minimum government and maximum governance with focus on the ease of doing business and simplification of tax procedures without compromising on tax revenues. The total wealth tax collection in the country is 1,008 crores in 13-14. Should a tax which leads to high cost of collection and low cost and low yield be continued, or should it be replaced with a low cost higher yield tax? The rich and wealthy must pay more tax than the less affluent ones. I have therefore decided to abolish wealth tax and replace it with an additional 2% surcharge on the super rich with a taxable income of over rupees 1 crore. This will lead to tax simplification and enable the department to focus on ensuring compliance and widening of the tax base. as against a tax sacrifice of 1,008 crores. Through this measure, the department would be collecting an additional rupees 9,000 crores on the 2% additional surcharge. Further, to track wealth held by individuals and entities, the information regarding assets which are currently required to be furnished in the wealth tax return will be captured in the income tax returns. This will ensure the abolition of wealth tax does not lead to escape of any income from the tax net. The provisions relating to indirect transfers of income tax, which is a legacy from the previous government, contains several ambiguities. This provision is being suitably cleaned up. Further concerns regarding applicability of indirect transfers, provisions to dividends paid by foreign companies to their stakeholders will be addressed by the CBDT through a clarificatory circular. These changes would eliminate the scope for discretionary exercise of power and provide a hassle-free structure to the taxpayers. I reiterate what I have said in the last budget, that ordinarily retrospective tax provisions adversely impact on stability and predictability of the taxation regime, and resort to such provisions shall be avoided. Further, to reduce associated hassles to smaller taxpayers and compliance of cost in domestic transfer pricing, I propose to increase the threshold limit from rupees 5 crores to 20 crores. In order to rationalize the MAT provisions for FIIs, profits corresponding to their income from capital gains on transactions in securities which are liable to tax at a lower rate shall not be subject to MAT. The Tax Administration Reforms Commission has given a number of recommendations to improve administration in tax department. These recommendations are in the advanced stage of examination and will appropriately be implemented during the course of the year. As a part of the GST, I had proposed to subsume educational cess and the secondary and higher educational cess in the central excise duty. In effect, the general rate of central excise duty of 12.36%, including cess, is now being rounded off to 12.5%. I propose to revise the specific rate of central excise duty in certain other commodities as detailed in the annexure. However, in the case of petrol and diesel, such specific rates are being revised only to the extent of subsuming the quantum of educational cess presently levied on them, keeping the total incidence of excise duties unchanged. The ad valorem rate of excise duties lower than 12% and those higher than 12%, with a few exceptions, are not being increased. Some changes are also being made to the excise levy on cigarettes and compounded levy scheme applicable to pan masala, gutka and certain other tobacco items. To give a boost to domestic leather footwear industry, the excise duty on footwear where leather uppers and having retail price of more than 1,000 per pair is being reduced to 6%. To further facilitate the ease of doing business, online excise and service tax registrations will be done in 2 working days. The assessees under the taxes will be allowed to issue digitally signed invoices and maintain electronic records. These measures will cut down a lot of paperwork, red tape, time limit for taking CENVAT credit into inputs input services are being increased from 6% to 1 year as a measure of business facilitation. Introduction of GST is clearly awaited by trade and industry. To facilitate smooth transition of levy of tax on services by both centre and states, it is proposed to increase the present rate of service tax plus education test from 12.36 to a consolidated rate of 14%. Madam Speaker, cleanliness of households and cleanliness environment are very important social causes. The 4th pillar of my taxation proposal this year therefore relates to initiatives for the Swachh Bharat Abhiyan. In my direct tax proposals, I have proposed a 100% deduction for contributions other than by way of CSR contributions to the Swachh Bharat Kosh. A similar tax treatment is also being proposed for the Clean Ganga Fund. In indirect taxes, I propose to increase the clean energy cess from 100 to rupees 200 per metric ton of coal to finance the clean environment initiatives. Excise duty on sacks of bags of polymer of ethylene other than those for industrial use is being increased from 12 to 15%. It is proposed to have an enabling provision to levy Swachh Bharat cess at a rate of 2% or less on all services if the need arises. This cess will be effective from a date to be notified. Resources generated from this cess will be used for financing and promoting initiatives towards Swachh Bharat. It is also proposed to exempt services of common affluent treatment plant from service tax. The concessions from customs and excise duty currently available on specified parts of manufacturing of electrical operated vehicles and hybrid vehicles are being extended for one more year up to 31/3/16. Madam, the fifth pillar of my taxation proposal this year is extension of benefits to the middle class taxpayers. These proposals in this regard are the following. Increase in limit of deduction of health insurance premium from 15,000 to 25,000 rupees. Madam, this is being done to encourage people to take health insurances as a part of our social security program. This will also enable a tax rebate. For senior citizens, this limit will be increased to 30,000 from the existing 10,000. For very senior citizens of the age of 80 years or above who are not covered by health insurance, deduction of rupees 30,000 towards expenditure incurred on their treatment will be allowed. हर वरिष्ठ नागरिक को 30,000 रुपए का सालाना डिडक्शन मेडिकल ट्रीटमेंट का मिलेगा. The deduction limit of 60,000 towards expenditure on account of specified diseases of serious nature is proposed to be enhanced to 80,000 in the case of senior citizens. Additional deduction of 25,000 will be allowed for differently abled persons under Section 80DD and Section 80U of the Income Tax Act. The limit of deduction on account of contribution to a pension fund and the new pension scheme is proposed to be increased from rupees 1 lakh to 1,50,000 each year. The next proposal, madam, is important. To provide social safety net, the facility of pension to individuals, and additional deduction of rupees 50,000 is proposed to be provided for contribution to the new pension scheme under Section 80CCD. This will enable India to become a pensioned society instead of a pensionless society. तो अपने जीवन के अर्निंग काल में जो भी पेंशन फंड को 50,000 रुपए तक देगा सालाना, उसको टैक्स की उस वर्ष की छूट मिलेगी ताकि ये आगे जाके वरिष्ठ आयु में उसकी पेंशन बन सके. Investments in the Sukanya Samriddhi scheme, which was recently launched by the Prime Minister, is already eligible for deduction under 80C. All payments made for the beneficiaries, that is the girl child, including interest payment on deposits, will be fully exempted from tax. Transport allowance, which is allowed to all taxpayers and is currently at rupees 800 per month. Transport allowance exemption is being increased from rupees 800 to rupees 1600 per month. For the benefit of senior citizens, service tax exemption will be provided on the Varisht Bima Yojana. Madam Speaker, I am giving these concessions to individual taxpayers despite inadequate fiscal space after taking into account the tax concessions given to the middle class payers in my last budget and in the present one, including the earlier concessions. An individual taxpayer can now get benefit up to rupees 4,44,200 as detailed in the annexure. As and when my fiscal capacity improves, individual taxpayers will have a lot to look forward to. Madam Speaker, there are several standalone proposals relating to taxation. These include conversion of existing excise duty on petrol and diesel to the extent of rupees 4 per litre to road cess to fund investment in roads and other infrastructure. ये जो कल विषय उठे यहाँ पर कि दुनिया में तेल की कीमत में कमी हुई है, जो उपभोक्ता को भी दिया है, उसमें से कुछ लाभ हाईवे कंस्ट्रक्शंस के लिए और रेलवेज के लिए भी उसका प्रयोग होगा. An additional sum of rupees 40,000 will be made available through this measure to these sectors. In service tax, exemption is being extended to certain pre-cold storage services in relation to fruits and vegetables so as to incentivize value addition in the crucial sector. The negative list under the service tax is being slightly pruned and certain other exemptions are being withdrawn to widen the tax base. Yoga is India's well-acknowledged gift to the world. It is proposed to include yoga within the ambit of charitable purposes of Section 215 of the Income Tax Act. Further, to mitigate problems faced by many genuine charitable organizations, it is proposed to modify ceiling on receipts from activities in the nature of trade, commerce, business to 20% of the total receipts from existing ceiling of 25 lakhs. A national database on the non-profit organization is being developed. Enactment of the Direct Tax Code has been under discussion for quite some time. Most of the provisions of the Direct Tax Code have been included in the Income Tax Act. Amongst the very few aspects of the DTC which were left out, we had addressed some issues in the present budget. Further, jurisprudence on income tax is well evolved. Considering these aspects, there is no great merit in going ahead with the Direct Tax Code as it exists today. Madam, the detailed direct and indirect proposals are given in the annexure to the budget speech and the other budget documents which are being laid on the table of the House. My direct tax proposals would lead to a loss of revenue of rupees 8,315 crore, whereas my proposal in indirect will yield rupees 23,383 crores. The net impact of my all tax proposals would be a revenue gain of 15,068. To conclude, Madam, it is no secret that expectations from this budget have been high. People who urge us to undertake big bang reforms also say that the Indian economy is a supergiant which moves slowly but surely. Even our worst critics would admit that we have moved rapidly. In this speech, I have clearly outlined not only what we are going to do immediately, but also a roadmap for the future. I think I can genuinely stake for our government a claim of intellectual honesty. We have been consistent in what we have said and what we are doing. We are committed, Madam Speaker, to achieving what we have been voted to power for. Change, growth, jobs, and genuine effective upliftment of the poor and underprivileged. Our commitment to the Daridra Narayan is steadfast, and is our commitment to constitutional principles of equality and justice for all without concern of caste, creed and religion. This is in the spirit of the Upanishads inspired mantra, Om Sarve Bhavantu Sukhina, Sarve Santu Niramaya, Sarve Bhadrani Paschyantu, Ma Kaschit Dukh Bhag Bhavet. With these words, Madam, I commend the budget to this Honourable House.